is just fantastic. Captain's log, subdate 210819.1. I have returned from my sister's wedding. Yay! It was a lot of fun, and I should now tell you Kendall mint cake liqueur is 100% recommended, as are the haggis sausages. Welcome everyone to the exhibition of stupid people. Before we start, I'd like to apologise for the lack of content this week. I had to attend my sister's wedding. It was in Scotland. There was a considerable amount of travelling involved. Thankfully, there are no other weddings, because the remaining 3 siblings, myself included, don't care for marriage. And as all of them are going on holiday next week, I have all the time and all the peace to make the content that I hope you all enjoy. So to start, we're going to go with an honourable mention. This involves something that happened to me yesterday. Upon returning from Scotland, we noticed a Royal Mail go to the depot to collect parcel card. So I went, picked up my sister's dog's ashes, and swung by after work. The extra walk to town was not appreciated, where I then saw this on the door, a revised set of opening hours, and I couldn't help but notice 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 3 hours on. Part of me thought perhaps they were working this around people's working day and their respective break times. And then I realised it seemed more plausible they were working around school times. But then what was more plausible than that? They're lazy bum dossers and they can't be bothered to do a full shift, which even if you put all those hours together, it is still not a full shift. You're dossers. You're bums. You should be ashamed of yourselves, but I do hope your extra naps a day are really helping you out. I turned up at 10:03, by the way. I am not now going to go back and collect it, nor am I going to ask them to return it. I'm just going to tell my postman to go and get it for me. So to our first subject, we go to Oregon. We don't talk about them very often. Are they still protesting and rioting? Recently, and you can thank people on my server for this, there was a change to the Animal Abuse, Neglect and Assault Law Initiative. Now it hasn't been voted on yet, so I don't know if it's actually going to go through. There's an election date, I guess, so they have a certain period of time of 6 to 7 months to vote on this. The changes in it include a large number of practices concerning animals being outlawed. So they do in effect protect animals and guarantee that they take priority over people, which will undoubtedly cause a stir. I generally don't mind when it comes to protecting animals. I have always been in their corner. They are far superior conversation starters, holders, types than the people I've encountered, the vast majority of which online. I don't mean my lovely patrons or my server mods. I mean the other dickheads that make content. So what the current ballot summary reads is, under current law, many activities that do or may kill or injure animals are lawful, including animal husbandry practices, slaughtering livestock and poultry, animal breeding practices, fishing, hunting and trapping, wildlife management practices, rodeos, scientific and agricultural research and teaching, control of vermin and nuisance animals, reasonable handling, training techniques. Proposed measure would make those practices and other common practices involving animals criminal offences if injury, death occurs. Criminalizes animal breeding practices for domestic, livestock and equine animals that involve touching the mouth, anus or sexual organs of the animal. Exception for good veterinary practices, self-defense, applies to mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish. Elimination of hunting, fishing licenses would remove funding from wildlife conservation efforts by Department of Fish and Wildlife. This one's an interesting one, because if you're removing a lot of those, then you're going to have to subsidize it somewhere else. I.e., if you're not going to have livestock, what are you going to use instead? Food-wise especially. I have a feeling you're going to be leaning on neighbouring states for that. Or are you just going to make it so that, by law, everyone in Oregon are vegan? I can see that causing quite the triggering. So to move on from that, we're going to talk about the US women's soccer team. And for this we talk about 2 players. One retired, one not yet. One being Hope Solo, the queen of domestic violence, lovely individual. The other being Megan Rapinoe, We've spoken of her many times. She gets a considerable amount of flack because she's gone incredibly left-leaning and very woke. Hope Solo, though, disagrees with her quite a bit. Hope Solo was yeeted off the team in 2016 because of her own personality clash. Let's call it that. Let's just be nice and say that. We're not going to ignore the fact that she beat one of her nephews, I believe, or stepchildren, nephews? One of those two. There was 2 people though, so chances are one or both. Who knows? She has criticised Megan Rapinoe for something, claiming that she has been bullying the US soccer teammates into taking the knee. The knee was introduced because of Colin Kaepernick, so many have noticed this and said, but Hope Solo wasn't on the team then. She was yeeted long before. So how does she know this? Well, actually, it was something far simpler. She saw it at the Tokyo Olympics where Carly Lloyd refused to take the knee. The US team, by the way, in their first game at the Olympics, lost after taking the knee. Many people pointing out that go woke, go broke. Get woke, go broke? Whatever. This is it in action. They did get a bronze in the end, which is what winners wear, right? Okay. Well done on winning the bronze, by the way. Hope Solo also pointed out a couple other issues with Megan Rapinoe. The first being that the chance had been offered to the team to actually earn equal pay long ago. However, in 2016, when they were about to sign a contract with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Megan Rapinoe and leaders of the team signed a less than equal collective bargaining agreement, which caused a number of issues with the overall class action suit and the fight itself for equal pay. The other more notable controversy concerned in 2019, when they had the chance to win a tournament in France. They'd then be offered a chance to go to the White House, then decided to go meet up with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Ayanna Pressley and other lawmakers, because they're blue and they were the preferred choice, something which Trump flayed them for, especially when they took the knee and lost. Does what Hope Solo say have any merit? Yes, because we have the video evidence to prove it. Many will conflate and say, you can't use her because she's a domestic abuser. Actually, you're wrong. I've always said this, it doesn't matter what crime someone has committed, if they're right on something, they are right. You may not like having to use them as a source, but if they make a point that can be substantiated, then it is a point worth making. And for the sake of it, after the Tokyo Olympics, Carly Lloyd had retired anyway. She was planning to, but many would point out, let's say she was 10 years younger and did this, chances are she would have been yeeted off the team anyway by Megan Rapinoe. I'm not entirely sure, nor am I convinced. So next we go to a British indie band called British Sea Power. They've been going since 2000. They're not the biggest of bands. They're quite niche. They don't do massive shows. They're not really a huge act. They never achieved that success either, to be honest. If anything, they've been in decline for a long time. Albums barely able to break so much as the Heatseeker chart in the US or the top 20 in the United Kingdom. They recently decided to rename their band. Part of me thought this was perhaps because they wanted to appeal to those a little more progressive, but also to cause a minor resurgence in their fortunes, which is unlikely. Bands that generally change too much don't get any attention or gain anywhere near as much traction. But it wasn't because of that they decided to change their name. In fact, they merely changed one word from the entire band's name because they didn't want to be associated with 2 of the words that were in it. So whereas they were British Sea Power, they are now just Sea Power, which sounds very power metal, don't you think, for an indie band? And I know they're an indie band because the only source I found on this was from NME, a trash indie, very left-leaning, formerly magazine, now website. They removed the word British because they didn't want the words British and power to be associated together, which sounds incredibly virtuous, doesn't it? And like a lot, and I'm sure you can all taste it and smell it, white guilt, which also coincidentally happens to smell like world-class designer bullshit. But alright, I'm sure your next album that comes out this year will totally succeed because of that. If it's a power metal album though, you have a chance. To our final subject, and this one is spicy, on par with a Scotch bonnet spicy. We have to go to something I saw as an image posted on Twitter. Progressive Belgian poet. People must accept that paedophilia resides in each of us. Every human being is sometimes attracted to innocence and youthfulness. The first article I found on this was from Breitbart, a site I didn't even realize existed anymore. I thought when Milo left perhaps they would have just gone down into the gutter. Clearly I was wrong. Her quote comes from a letter condemning the demonization of pedophiles and saying that people need to accept them. This is because of an investigation by Belgian journalists into a Flemish actor who was accused of sexually abusing children. She refers to pedophiles as a marginalized, vulnerable group that has been treated as sickening scum by the decent, moralistic community for years, pointing out that pedophiles never engage in pedophile acts, that every human being is sometimes attracted to innocence and youthfulness, and it is dangerous to demonize and silence pedophiles. In this way, the pedophile is almost forced into a position of illegality and perverted criminality. If you yell at someone long enough, you're sick and disgusting, get under a rock. You just get the pedosexual excesses and child pornography we all want to avoid. I have a few issues here. The first is you are making a conflation, and that is that once a pedophile crosses the line, they are no longer that. They are a sex offender. The second is the word pedosexual. Let's not use that, shall we? While you're entitled to your free speech, I'm going to criticize that use of a word that really shouldn't be used. And third, how about no? Very simply, how about no? We are not as a society going to accept this, yet it has been going on for years. I found articles from 2014, 2017 and 2018 talking about this. About it being a fate, not a choice. How it's a disorder, not a crime. And it should be accepted as an unchangeable sexual orientation. This kind of crap needs to go the way of the dodo, alright? I won't ever accept anyone who commits crimes against minors. Anyway, that one's spicy. As we're done, I'd like to know very much what you think. Please consider letting me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, smashing that like button. I will be on Twitch tonight streaming Assassin's Creed Odyssey. If I don't see you there, have a fantastic day, and thank you all very much for listening.